So with us today, we have Arman, who is the CEO of EcoWaste Services. Arman, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
So Arman, for the people that don't know you, your business, what you do, kind of give us a little 30,000-foot look at the business, how you help the cannabis industry, and then we'll build from there.
Sure. So, like you mentioned, my name is Arman. I'm the CEO of EcoWaste. We are a cannabis waste management company. And what that means essentially is that we provide a disposal service for the cannabis supply chain. We come by, we do a manifesting and a collection of the waste a generator generates. We haul it away, and then we dispose of it. That's kind of nutshell snapshot of what it is. There's a little bit more in detail about what we do and how we help the industry stay in compliance and kind of deter the illicit market. But general overview again, we're a cannabis waste company. We come by, we collect everything from the supply chain, from retail, cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, delivery, you name it. We service all the entire supply chain.
Got you. So cannabis waste. Most people be like, there's no waste in cannabis. So kind of let's peel back. What is cannabis waste? Maybe specifically for a manufacturer or for a distribution partner. What are these pieces of waste that you're helping to move out of the supply chain into wherever they get destroyed at?
Absolutely. So there are different types of waste streams depending on the type of license or the type of generator that the client customer is. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, as far as the manufacturer, a manufacturer might have post-extract biomass waste that can be recycled or composted. Now, it's important to distinguish that this biomass, if it has anything more than 0.1% toxicity in hazardous material, it won't be considered a cannabis waste. It'll be considered a hazardous waste, which is a whole set of different kind of waste stream, different regulations, different compliance requirements. But for a manufacturer, anything that falls less than that, which is possible to get to if a manufacturer lets the biomass sit and gas off for about 72 hours, I would say at least, we would get it down to that lower toxicity level. Then we can take it as a cannabis waste, and we can then work on either recycling it or disposing it depending on the exact contents. A distribution license, for example, they'll have different types of waste, again, depending on their situation. Sometimes a distributor might get failed product back from a retailer, or whether it's edibles, flour, bottle, liquids, etc. They'll get those failed material back, and they'll need to then dispose of it to be compliant with the BCC. And we can kind of pick at that apart a little bit too, as a distributor has they have a multitude of products, and those products are each treated differently as well.
Got you. So you said that, as some of these products, because you got volatile and non-volatile extraction, they have certain things that go to make these products. You're saying that if the product is removed sooner than 72 hours, it becomes toxic waste. I'm guessing it's probably a higher price point to get rid of that waste compared to just regular blown off cannabis waste.
Absolutely. And 72 hours, just remember, it's a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Won't pretend to be a scientist. It's always better to ask the scientists those exact specifications. You want to do those testing on site for yourself. But absolutely, the goal is to make sure that we try and get it to classify it as a cannabis waste, because if it's classified as a hazardous waste and, as you said, as a volatile waste, the price could be 3 to 7 times more expensive than a cannabis waste disposal service. And there are different regulations, different compliance requirements for that. So we want to try and help the industry try and avoid spending more money where they're already heavily taxed and heavily burdened with these costs.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, it's like there's so much red tape in this industry, specifically in the state of California. It's like, man, it's kind of like how your business kind of is essentially regulated into the industry, right? Your business wouldn't exist without regulations mandating that these operators dispose of their waste. I'm sure every state to a certain degree has these type of regulations, but maybe not to the strict regulations of California. Do you guys operate in just California or other states, and kind of shed some light on that potentially?
Right now, we're operating just in California. Our coverage is Southern California. We have about a 3-hour radius from our base in Los Angeles. We are working on developing more coverage up in Northern California. And of course, the goal is to expand out. The goal is to work in getting coverage in other states like Colorado, Washington, Nevada, Maine, Massachusetts. Though that's our ambition. And, everything gradually builds as regulations continue to get developed, as the industry continues to be more mature and more, accepting of following more compliance practices and guidelines, then we'll be able to implement our service more.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And so when I was reading up on eco waste, I see that the origins of the business is in food and construction industry, and then again, legislation essentially makes your business have to exist in the cannabis industry. So why did you guys transition from food and construction to this cannabis industry? Or was this something always in the plan? Tell me a little bit about why choosing waste management for the cannabis industry.
Yeah, a great question. So I'll take it a step back actually from there. Before EcoWaste was even founded in 2016, we had a company called BioWaste. We're a medical waste management company. My business partner found that company in 2011, and I joined forces with him in about 2015, 2016. I started helping him out there, and then from there, we decided to open up a sister company called EcoWaste.
Mm-hmm.
And that was around the time where California wanted to start really enforcing and pushing diversions for organic waste like food scraps and organic materials from landscaping, trimmings, etc. And we decided to look into that and kind of get into that space. As soon as we launched, we decided to make movement towards that, but then our focus was really more on biowaste at the time, so we didn't really have a lot of traction at EcoWaste during 2016. And then around 2018, whenever when cannabis became recreational and legalized here in California, a buddy of ours contacted us and said, "Hey, it's legalized now, and we actually were told, and we looked at there's this regulation for cannabis waste. Can you guys look into it for us?" Like, sure, we'll take a look and see what the situation is. So we did our research. We looked into regulations. We saw that this is a urgent demand for this service I feel we're pretty perfect for, because we already have a lot of the setup for it through biowaste, and we saw that the transition was very identical. Whereas food waste, it's a little more of a harder barrier to enter because you have to deal with waste management contracts, republic contracts, city municipality issues. Versus cannabis is something that's more specialized and requires a little bit more attention, like medical waste. So we knew that this is the kind of the field we want to get into, and we just put all of our efforts toward that.
Perfect. That's kind of all the serendipity of the industry coming together with your experience and your connections. So that's probably a great phone call. Your friend rang you up.
Great. It was a great tip. Great tip.
Yeah.
And we're like, what? That's it. Perfect. We looked into it, and from there we got a truck, and we just started immediately. We didn't even made the website, everything. Just maybe 30 days we got up and going and started servicing the industry right away.
That's amazing. I want to first touch about the team, and then I want to go into a little bit about the services here. So tell us about the team behind it. It's not just a one man or one guy, one girl show. Tell us a little bit about your team and who's a part of the team, and how big is this company?
Yeah, we're still a grassroots company. Me and my partner were part of the executive, you could call. We're the upper echelon of it. We handle a lot of the administrative and a lot of the marketing and sales and things of that nature, because we feel that we have the most experience, and we're working towards expanding that team in the sales department and administrative department. But I really actually want to give a shout out to our drivers, because they're really the heart of what we do. These are the guys that are boots on the ground. They're the ones that see the clients most frequently, the ones doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and they're just awesome, amazing guys. They've been with us for, our driver has been with us on EcoWaste side at least for since the beginning, and he's going to be here forever type of thing. Just amazing people, and our focus is to make sure that the people that we work with, whether it's internally and externally, is about compliance and reliability. So when we look to hire someone, it's not something that's, enforced where you have to be at work all the time, right? But it's someone that wants to be at work. We want to work with people that want to be there, because we are happy with what we're doing, and we want our team to also be happy with what they're doing. And so far, we've been, we've had success in that with team members.
That's good. It's not, passion. A lot of these interviews I do, passion is the kind of the one factor that makes the difference between a successful business or successful hire and someone who is going to be unsuccessful or kind of unhappy at the end. So it's good you're looking for people that they desire to fix this problem with you. And it's always going to be here. There will always be cannabis waste. So it's good that you have those people with a long-term kind of plan with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's, I think, the same for many companies, not just us, you want to look or aspire to have people on their team that have similar mindsets or similar or similarities in their culture, right? So that's kind of, just really proud of our people.
That's good. That's good. So let's switch gears. Let's talk actually about compliance, right? This is the bad C word around the entire industry for this or for that reason. You know, cannabis is the only crop with so much red tape. With the licensing process, you have to have a cannabis waste management plan. It's critical to get approved pretty much, right? I think at least in the state of California, looking at the licensing and stuff of that. So how do you go about developing a waste management plan specifically for cannabis businesses, or do you do that? Do you help with licensing for cannabis businesses when they're developing that plan?
Yeah, absolutely. We get those, frequent questions, frequent calls for people who are looking to get their applications sent in. Of course, they need a waste management plan. What we do is we have a general template that acts as the guidelines for what we are going to do and how are we going to help keep this licensee in compliance. The specifications to each location has to be tailored with that licensee, of course. So we can't write something that's like very specific to everybody. They'll have to be in their side of it. They'll have to designate where their cannabis waste area is, and from there they're going to have to match. Hey, this is where the area is. From in this SOP, this is where EcoWaste SOP kicks in.
Gotcha.
This is where that waste management plan kicks in. Once they come get it from this room, and they collect it. And here's what they do with it. Here's the explanation for that. So that's how we help. It's a more general template, and if they need us to write something more specific, we do. We go in there, we'll write anything specific that they need in addition. But so far, the template's been doing a great job. It hasn't been any issues with it. Everyone's been passing, getting no problems with their cannabis waste section. So we're happy with that.
That's good. And then does this tie into metric at all? How does this tie into metric? Seed to sale. Well, we kind of look past pre-sale or post-sale. How do we get rid of this waste? Is this tracked in metric? Are there manifests that go with this?
Yeah, so it is tracked in metric, not as comprehensive as it should be, but it's tracked in metric where a cultivator or a retailer or a licensee will have to reconcile that they've destroyed a failed product, a failed batch in the system. It doesn't go into detail as far as I guess how and the more descriptive natures of what you would need to clarify between rendered waste and unrendered waste, but you would be able to match your records or the licensee's records with our manifest. So our manifests have a number. You match that number with whatever IDs, batch IDs you're using in your system, whether it's an Excel sheet, whether it's metric, whatever systems you're using, you'd be able to match it.
Gotcha. And let's talk a little bit about the wildfires. Has that kind of impacted? There's a lot of conjecture in the industry. We still haven't seen it shake out. We're still in the middle of Croptober. You're not way up in the north, but there are still, fires in the south here, potentially affecting some of the outdoor grows. Have you seen business kick up, or kind of any products that have to be destroyed, or cannabis that's not passing COA because of these fires from your boots on the ground, your vantage point?
So far, and thankfully, nothing. I haven't seen any issues directly from the fires. Which is, I guess, a good thing in a way. There are, it does ebb and flow as far as, whether licensees have to dispose of it more urgently or in months, whether they have to, some months they'll have more waste, some months they won't. So it does kind of flow in between that. Thankfully, no issues directly from the fires so far.
That's good. Yeah, man, it's been kind of devastating to see all this stuff happen, and it just gets worse every year. And I think like the pre-fire season was worse than fire season last year. So, we'll see how it all
this year was bad. Last year was closer to me here in Burbank, but this year's was pretty large in comparison.
Yeah, and we're still not over with it. So, man.
Yeah.
Very far from over. So I want to talk about, building your business. It's not sunshine and rainbows in cannabis every day. It's tough, right? This is hard work. The specific work that you do is hard work, but the industry, because it's kind of changing and the goal line is always moving different ways. What's one of the biggest challenges you faced building your business, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the biggest challenge I would say we had was creating internal operating procedures that was focused on that reliability, because that's something that we're really focused on. I know some of our competitors, they do a fantastic job as far as the environmental side is concerned, and we focus on that as well. But I'll admit that our focus is more, listen, you have something that you need to dispose of. You can't wait 7 to 10 days. Mm-hmm. You need it to get rid of it now. BCC is on you. They're saying, where's the paperwork? We need to get this taken care of. That's what was the biggest challenge for us, was to make sure that our systems are so tight knitted where those kind of issues won't come up. And thankfully, we've created that system where we're very, very reliable, where if you have a scheduled pickup, we're there. You have consistent pickups happening, and you won't have to worry about that kind of issue ever coming up. I would say, in secondary to that is definitely the environmental side. Kudos to our competitors who are doing a fantastic job with the environmental recycling portion of it. The challenge with that space, though, is a lot larger than cannabis waste. The challenge with that space is that a lot of these end disposal sites are not properly set up to actually recycle material, particularly cannabis material. Cannabis waste is still federally criminalized, meaning a lot of these disposal sites are still going to follow federal law, and they're not going to want to touch anything to do with cannabis.
Gotcha.
So you have to really kind of find a pocket there and work with someone in that pocket to get it done. But how does that solve the issue on a large scale? It really doesn't when you think about it. And that's kind of what my focus has been a lot recently, is trying to, not find a quick, here, take it from me. More like, what can we do to find a system that can be duplicated across the country and maybe the world, but I'm not going to go that grand yet.
Gotcha. And so do you service the hemp industry as well?
We don't service the hemp industry right now. The hemp industry is interesting. We've gotten inquired about, servicing the hemp industry too, but they're able to monetize their waste, and good for them. If they're able to monetize their waste and sell it to someone that's extracting it, or taking the seeds or the post-extract biomass is being sold off back into the cannabis supply chain, good for them. They don't need a company like us to dispose of it for them. Or better yet, if they have the ability, they can compost on site and put it back into their agricultural process, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, this whole testing hot stuff, and there's so much shit with the hemp. I'm excited to see how it develops over time, because I think hemp is going to be one of the biggest disruptors for so many industries. Bioplastics, biofuels, textiles, everything you could think of under the sun can be made from hemp. So we'll see 100%. How that.
I mean, the trouble with that is, the thing with that is just, supply and demand. It's a catch-22. We need more hemp farmers to create more supply of hemp, which will bring down the cost to purchasers for that hemp to then be able to make textiles and products out of it. Because a bioplastic, is going to cost someone a lot more money than a regular polymer plastic. Yeah. And it just doesn't make sense for these manufacturers to say, well, yeah, I'll buy your waste at a higher margin so I can sell it at a higher margin. It makes no sense. So, it just, I agree with you. I think in time in that space will really become the dominant space in anything cannabis related, in the overarching cannabis section.
100%. So let's talk about a little about the early days here. How did you go about, aside from your friend that gave you the phone call, how did you start to develop and build this business, right? Cannabis is a lot of, who you know more than what you know, because you have to develop what you know every day, essentially. Yes. So how do you go about marketing a business that's an ancillary service? It's not super sexy. You're not in like the fun part of the industry doing packaging or whatever. How do you market an ancillary service that like yours?
Initially, the main point that we used to kind of get into the market was compliance, and still is, but that was the biggest issue. So in 2018, everyone was trying to get their license, right? So there was a surge of people that I need to do everything in compliance. Once they heard about the waste and they were notified that this is something that you have to do for compliance, it was a little bit easier to open that conversation up with people. And a lot of I would say cannabis providers like lawyers and accountants and stuff helped us out too. They gave us referrals and their voices that licensees trusted. So it was really helpful for us to have that kind of referral coming from people like that were trusted already by the industry. You would trust your lawyer to tell you what to do for compliance. You would trust your consultant. So those individuals and those groups really helped us out a little bit as well. But the main tactic we used was inverse to what the standard is today of social media and digital. We did a lot of mailers. We sent out a lot of letters. Originally the BCC had, I think they still do, they were releasing addresses and information for licensed locations. So we were just sending out letters to them. Hey, make sure do you have this? You may have a license. Maybe they overlooked this. Or if they got denied, hey, saw you got denied, sign up. So we did a lot of that. And AdWords, we put a big budget into AdWords initially, and that kind of helped too when people were Googling. Just a bunch of additional SEO stuff too. We did a lot of blogs, we did a lot of interviews, we did a lot of online stuff to help our organic reach go up. And, now we're just kind of maintaining that flow.
That's great. Yeah, that's you got to be a guerrilla marketer when you get into the cannabis industry
Yeah.
with so many like most platforms don't allow you to advertise and dude, going with the mailers is super smart. Yeah, with all the information being out there, you kind of have your subset of people to hit right away
Mhm.
with a targeted message, print off 2,000 flyers and you're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we still do it to this day. We regularly send out mailers because it's like, it's very direct. And, the cannabis industry, again, like you said, it's not that easy to get access to them on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook because the platform's still kind of, giving a little trouble for it. But the mailers were very direct and very quick and easy to like, hey, you need this, call us, let's talk about it.
Gotcha. So what's one of the things that you wish you had known before you started your career in the cannabis industry?
Hmm. That's a really good question. Uh, I would say a little bit more about the cultivation side or the
Yeah.
actual, the growing side of it. That's something that I don't have a green thumb, but that's definitely something that I would have liked to have known earlier in my career. I still don't know as well as I'd like to. Those things kind of fly over my head. I'm a business guy, more so than an agricultural guy. So, but that's definitely something that I would have liked to have learned a little bit more about, like, how the actual process of growing it is, and maybe even giving one a go earlier before I started, just to have that kind of knowledge. But as far as the industry goes, I found it actually really enlightening to see how responsive people were to having conversations and making friends and creating a network. It was really fascinating to see that.
Yeah, building up those relationships is really, really critical. And yeah, especially when you can speak to a cultivator with lingo that they understand, it makes that
Right.
conversation so much easier. The sale essentially becomes almost in the bag because you're speaking the same language as them and they know that they can trust you. Like you said, you brought up the reliability, the trust, the competence. It's
Yeah.
very important as an ancillary service to make that very well known that you know what the hell you're talking about and you're not just someone out here trying to take money at a marijuana markup kind of thing. Because you see a lot of that sliminess in the
Yeah.
industry and it's still shaking out and it'll always be there. I think it's getting
Yeah.
pushed more to the side. So
No, absolutely, and that's definitely what I would have focused on. We still kind of, we don't try and pretend that we're something we're not. I won't ever say that I know the cultivation side of it as well as a cultivator does. Just it's not right. I know the
yeah,
waste side. You want to know, talk about how pickups are done, the logistics of the truck. Talk to me. I'll tell you, explain that to you. But that's why I focused more on that. Like, hey, we're reliable to doing pickups. I'm not gonna sit here and try and pretend that I'm some kind of cannabis connoisseur or something like that. But I'm going to tell you that, listen, as a business person, I'm going to make sure that your pickups are done, your service is top tier, and you're going to, get what you pay for essentially.
that's good. That's smart. Yeah. Don't, there's no fake it till you make it in this industry kind of thing. You don't want to
Exactly.
do that. Your card will get pulled very, very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah. The circle is very small and yeah, it takes a long time to build up that trust and very quickly can that get taken away from you.
Absolutely.
So let's just kind of talk about overall, generally industry. What are some of the interesting things you're seeing in the cannabis industry nowadays, whether it's through regulations, new products, new brands, mergers and acquisitions? What are some things that kind of grab your eye or grab your ear so that you're kind of seeing what the future may hold for eco waste?
I put a lot of attention on regulations and compliance and topics of that nature. And I find it really interesting looking at these municipalities and what kind of conversations they're having, at city council, because at the end of the day, yeah, we have state level issues, but we also have very deep local level issues. Conspiracists will come out and, say what they're going to say. Some of it I'll agree with, some of it I won't. But,
Yeah.
I think we have to really look at our local government and our local city council members and see what they're talking about. And that's what I kind of see fascinating about the cannabis industry. What I found interesting about this space is that compared to other industries, we are very heavily involved in these conversations. The amount of people that are actually in talking to city councils and making moves and putting effort in advocacy for allowing these cities to open up their cities to cannabis, that's something that I find very powerful and I find very interesting.
Do you go out and attend some of these city council meetings or go to talk to any lobbying groups? Do you participate in this kind of stuff? Because California, 66% of the localities don't have commercial cannabis activity.
Yeah.
So do you go and head out to those different meetings and things like that, or have someone from your team head out there?
I've done it. I went to a few. I did some of the virtual ones. I try and put as much effort as I can, but I'm still running a business as a grassroots company. So it's my goal is to get to a point where majority of my time is doing these kind of having these kind of conversations and having those kind of conversations. I have I have, my plans laid out to participate more in these advocacy groups, but, it's something that, I personally rather put more of my attention on building the business first, making sure that the business is really solid so that when I do that, that doesn't crumble whenever I do bring in more business or bring in more contacts or, less of my time is not dedicated here, it's dedicated there, So I try to keep up as much as I can.
For sure. That's good. Yeah. It's tough, man. Especially when California is so big, there's so many places to go and see and do all these different things. Yeah. You got to focus first on building the business, making sure that the payroll's met and the lights stay on for these kind of things here. So
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly it. I'm building a business first at the end of the day.
100%. Yeah. Good deal. So then let's talk about other little known opportunities in the industry. Yeah, you're the only the only waste management group that's come across my desk. I'm not saying I'm the tell-all be-all of anything in the industry. It's just that we don't see a lot of these kind of ancillary services or other kind of opportunities. So when speaking with other people throughout the industry, have you seen any other opportunities that most people are not, say, drawn to because it's not the sexy cultivation or the big brand stuff? There's lots of cool things out there. What are you seeing that's maybe some different opportunities that people can use to get in the industry instead of just jumping into a licensed cannabis operation and having to have $1 million to start? What are some other opportunities you're potentially seeing?
I mean, I won't pretend to know anything unique, but there's a lot of like you said, there's a lot of ancillary options available to people, and it's really based off of what their interests lie to, right? Like you can be just being a blogger about how cannabis is connected to movies, for example, like that's something, that's some kind of media information that can help spread awareness on cannabis, on maybe the benefits of it, not just the cliches that, everyone thinks cannabis is involved in. But there's absolutely different areas that people get into, whether it's tech services, accounting and finance, legal, I would just suggest that people look at what they want to do and how they can apply that to the cannabis space itself. I don't think it's necessarily something that has to be the $1 billion business. If it's meant to be a $1 billion business, you can get it there if you really want to. But there's I think a bunch of room there. Maybe art. You could be an artist. You can draw art specifically for cannabis retailers. That can be your niche. Event planning. There's a bunch of different little things, pockets that people can enter.
That's super enlightening. Yeah. I like the idea of the content creators, the artists, and just doing what you love. And how do you just add cannabis into that and kind of dovetail yourself into the industry, because as you do one thing, you meet a bunch of people and you start to see other opportunities. I guess pretty much the advice is, how to build a business is just to start, and see where it takes you.
Exactly. And I think that's a big thing to not focus on, because I think that's the challenge with the cannabis industry. There's so much money being poured into it, where a lot of people maybe that aren't familiar with it, I've just heard that friends use it or heard people are in it, will look at them like, oh, there's a lot of money in this. Let's do something in there, and even when they do think about something ancillary or a new unique idea, they get too caught up in that billion-dollar investments world. It's like, well, you can build a really good product, a really good service or business without having to be $1 billion company or $1 million company. And again, like I said, you can get it to there if you really want to.
Yeah, I mean, pushing out, the green rush has been one of the worst things that ever talked about in this entire industry. It's been media kind of like telling everybody, oh, there's like a finite thing to go make all this money. But it really is, you can build a brand from now for 100 years from now, right? There's big alcohol brands that are being made 90 years after legalization or after prohibition. There's still going to be opportunities. So don't think that there's this kind of small window in the 2020 or 2025 that you can only do this. There will be opportunity over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anything, you can even watch the market and watch the industry and see what works, what doesn't, what the market's responding to. That's also a benefit in its own way, right? Just observing without having to put any risk in yourself. If you really want to, you can observe what other people's successes are and what other people's failures are. And maybe that will trigger a new niche for you to kind of think about or to do.
Super smart there. Super smart. So then, what else haven't we talked about in this interview that you'd like to cover? Any other questions or thoughts or things you want to share with the audience, with the people watching or listening right now?
I would just, say that continue putting a lot of attention on compliance, regulation, advocacy. I think that's very important for our industry. I think that, it's going to sound, not everybody's going to want to take this, but definitely look at your waste, make sure that you're disposing it correctly. Obviously I'm biased, but, from what I've seen, I get alerts for any kind of raids or raids that are done on cannabis companies, and most often, most often than not, there is at least one penalty about waste management, at least one, whether it's liquid, hazardous, or cannabis, but at least one. So I would say really put attention to that. You're burning money away for no reason, paying those penalties. Just do it the right way. Save money, pay up front, but you pay less in the overall scheme of things. So definitely just don't sleep on the small parts of the industry, the unsexy parts of the industry.
That's it. That's good for sharing that. And then lastly, where can anybody find out about your services? What's your website? Where can people find out about you and learn more about EcoWaste Services?
So our website is www.ecowasteservices.com. We're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, and we're on Twitter at Real EcoWaste. Usually our Instagram is probably the best place to go. We try and put every day out some kind of headlines and links to current events or news reports that are happening in the industry. So I would suggest anyone that's interested in keeping up with that to go there. We also have a newsletter, Catching Up on Cannabis, goes out once a week. Same thing, just top headlines in the past 7 days of what's been happening in the industry. We try and keep that one as tailored as we can to California, since our base is in California, and about regulations and compliance.
100%. Sign up for their newsletter. I love getting that. It's like 5 or 6 articles. It really helps you digest, because it's almost like drinking out of a fire hose here with the cannabis industry. There's 4 new bills or this or that. So sign up for Real EcoWaste newsletter here. It's a fantastic one coming weekly. And again, Arman, thank you very much for your time. It's been very enlightening to see, this part of the industry, and it's not talked about a lot. So again, thank you for your time and sharing your knowledge with us.
No, I appreciate it. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on it. And like you said, it's not something that's talked about a lot, and that's okay. But, I'm happy to share, my experiences and what we see in the industry with everybody else that's watching.